It is one of the strangest paradoxes of our time. Humanity has built telescopes that can glimpse the birth of galaxies billions of light years away, yet we still don't fully understand what's happening a few thousand kilometers beneath our own feet. We send robotic explorers to Mars, probe the rings of Saturn, and capture the faintest whispers of gravitational waves from colliding black holes. Yet the very planet we stand upon remains, in many ways, a mystery. The Earth feels solid, permanent, reliable. It spins with such precision that our days and nights march on like clockwork. We trust that rhythm. It's the heartbeat of civilization, the silent metronome that governs every sunrise, every tide, every rotation of a wind turbine and tick of an atomic clock. But what if I told you that deep inside this planet, that rhythm may be changing? That the Earth's inner core, its dense metallic heart, might be slowing down? At first, that statement seems almost poetic. The Earth slowing its own heart? It sounds like myth, but it's science. Hard, measurable, and deeply humbling. Because if it's true, it doesn't just alter the physics of our planet, it alters our sense of permanence. It reminds us that even the most steadfast things in the universe evolve. Picture for a moment a cross-section of the Earth. At the surface, you and I walk on a crust, only a few dozen kilometers thick, like the thin skin of an apple. Beneath that lies the mantle, a vast region of molten rock that moves slowly over eons, driving the continents adrift and feeding volcanoes that can change the climate of the entire world. And then, at the very center, some 5,000 kilometers down, lies the core two layers, a liquid outer core and a solid inner core, both composed primarily of iron and nickel. That metallic heart is as hot as the surface of the sun, spinning independently of the rest of the planet. It's that rotation, those currents of molten metal that generate the Earth's magnetic field, our invisible shield against solar radiation. It deflects deadly particles from the sun, stabilizes our atmosphere, and allows compasses and migratory birds, and even whales to find direction. In short, the core doesn't just lie beneath us. It protects us. It defines us. Now, recent studies suggest something remarkable. The solid inner core may have slowed its rotation relative to the mantle and crust above it. This isn't science fiction, it's seismology. Tiny differences in the timing of seismic waves that pass through the planet suggest that the core's spin is gradually changing. In fact, over decades, it might even oscillate, speeding up, then slowing down, like a pendulum swinging beneath the surface of the world. No, the Earth isn't going to stop spinning. You don't need to hold on to your furniture. But this discovery challenges one of our most comforting illusions, that beneath our feet lies something eternally stable. The truth is, the Earth is restless from the inside out. And if that sounds unsettling, it should also sound familiar, because we too are restless creatures living atop a restless world. For billions of years, the inner core has been growing, slowly crystallizing out of the molten outer core as the Earth cools. That growth releases heat, drives convection, and sustains the magnetic field. But the dynamics of that system are not constant. They change with temperature, composition, and the gravitational tug between layers. Imagine it as a kind of cosmic ballet, where iron atoms, pressure waves, and magnetic lines all interact in a slow, rhythmic dance. Over millions of years, those rhythms can shift, and when they do, the effects ripple outward. Slight changes in magnetic intensity, subtle drifts in the poles, even imperceptible variations in the length of a day. It's a planetary reminder that motion is the essence of life. That stillness in the universe is an illusion. There's something almost poetic about the idea that the planet itself breathes, expanding, contracting, oscillating in slow motion. The slowing of the core isn't a crisis. It's a heartbeat-changing tempo. But it's also a metaphor, if we let it be, because we too have cores in our lives that power everything we do. And sometimes those cores slow down. We call it burnout, disillusionment, fatigue. We forget our internal rotation, the drive that once made us move with purpose. Maybe, in a strange way, the Earth is reminding us to pause isn't always to falter. Sometimes it's to recalibrate. Just as our planet's heart changes rhythm to sustain balance, perhaps we too need to realign our internal motion with the gravitational pull of what truly matters. Science has a funny way of holding up a mirror. When we look outward, we see inward. When we study the vast, we discover the intimate. The forces that govern the motion of Earth's core are the same ones that shape the stars and galaxies. Gravity compresses, rotation stabilizes, magnetism organizes. The same physics that ignited the sun and holds galaxies together also keeps our compasses pointing north. That's the beauty of the universe, it's consistent, from the cosmic to the microscopic. And in that consistency lies meaning, because if the same laws that choreograph the spin of galaxies also govern the iron beneath your feet, then we are, in every sense, participants in a universal dance. We are not separate from the cosmos. We are the cosmos, conscious, self-aware, and asking why. When I was young, I was fascinated by magnets. I'd hold one in my hand, feel it tug against another, invisible forces pulling at me from across empty space. I didn't know it then, but that invisible pull was the same phenomenon shaping the planet itself, the same magnetism generated deep below by molten metal moving in patterns no human eye has ever seen. Today, our technology depends on that field. Our satellites, our GPS, even our electrical grids would be crippled without it. Yet, that same field, born from the motion of the core, fluctuates. It's been reversing polarity for billions of years. North becomes south, south becomes north. To the Earth, it's just physics. To us, it's a reminder that permanence is an illusion. The only constant in this universe is change. But change by itself isn't tragedy, it's evolution. The slowing of the core, the shifting of magnetic fields, the drifting of continents, these are not omens of doom. They are the planet's way of adjusting to its own growth, its own cooling, its own story. And that story stretches back farther than we can imagine. 4.5 billion years ago, the Earth formed from cosmic debris, dust, and gas left over from the birth of the Sunday gravity pulled it together. Impacts melted it. Iron sank to the center, forming the core. The surface cooled, oceans formed, life began. And for all that time, the core has been spinning silently, invisibly, tirelessly. To realize that it might now be changing pace is not to fear it, but to marvel at it. After billions of years, the planet is still alive. In the same way that the human heart never beats exactly the same twice, the Earth's heart, too, pulses with variation. These fluctuations remind us that our planet isn't a static backdrop for human civilization. It's a dynamic organism of rock, metal, and magnetism. Every mountain, every earthquake, every aurora, every compass needle, they all trace their lineage to that molten motion below. So when scientists say the Earth's core might be slowing, they aren't just describing a physical process, they're unveiling a deeper truth. That stability itself is an illusion maintained by motion. And motion itself is the quiet poetry of existence. And that realization leads to a question: what does it mean for a species ours to depend so utterly on a system we cannot control and barely understand? We've become masters of surface change, technology, industry, digital life, yet we remain apprentices of deep understanding. We manipulate the crust, but ignore the core. We shape the biosphere, but forget the forces that sustain it. Maybe that's the real significance of this discovery. It's not about seismic waves or magnetic drift. It's about humility. Because if even the Earth, the rock we stand on, the ground we call stable, has a heart that changes pace, what right do we have to claim permanence for anything we build? We often talk about ground truth, the idea that what we see beneath our feet is certain, measurable, reliable. But the slowing of Earth's core reminds us that even truth, like matter, evolves. Science itself is a conversation, not a conclusion. Every answer births new questions. Every discovery opens new mysteries. And that's not a flaw in our understanding. It's the feature that makes us human. We are the only species, as far as we know, that can feel awe at its own ignorance. If we zoom out for a moment, there's a certain irony in the timing of this discovery. At a time when our societies spin faster than ever, information, commerce, culture, accelerating beyond comprehension, the planet beneath us may be, in its own quiet way, slowing down. Perhaps that's nature's poetry, a reminder that speed is not the same as progress, that even a world can pause, adjust, find a new equilibrium, and if the Earth itself can change tempo, maybe humanity can too. Maybe it's time we slow our own relentless motion, not to stop, but to listen. Because sometimes, in the silence between rotations, the universe speaks. We often talk about the Earth as if it were a finished product, an object we live upon, not within. But in truth, this planet is a machine still running, still evolving, still humming with internal heat. The crust may seem cool and solid, but a few dozen kilometers down, temperatures soar, rocks soften, and the laws of motion become visible only through the slow patience of geology. Every volcano, every earthquake, every magnetic pulse we detect is a signature of energy migrating from the planet's interior to its surface. That energy is the reason we have a magnetic field, a temperate climate, even the continents themselves. The slowing of the core isn't a mechanical glitch. It's a modulation in this great thermodynamic symphony. Heat drives everything. It is the planet's most ancient inheritance from accretion, from radioactive decay, from the colossal collision that birthed our moon. That heat flows outward, powering convection in the liquid outer core, creating electric currents and thus magnetic fields. In that sense, Earth is not merely spinning, it's electrified. It is a natural dynamo, a cosmic generator, wound by time itself. And yet, even generators lose energy. Over billions of years, the Earth has been cooling. The solid inner core has grown, and its rotation has subtly changed. The friction between its motion and that of the outer layers may transfer angular momentum, like gears catching, like tides shifting within rock. It's a slow dance, so slow that a full cycle might take centuries or millennia. But it's a dance nonetheless. When we study this, we are not just learning about the Earth. We are witnessing entropy at work, the great equalizer of the cosmos. No system lasts forever, not planets, not stars, not galaxies, and yet within that inevitable decay, new structures, new balances, new beauty arise. Consider the magnetic field that shields our world. It's invisible, but it's everywhere flowing through you right now, through your phone, your bloodstream, your thoughts. Every atom of iron in your body was once aligned by cosmic magnetism, forged in the hearts of long-dead stars. This field isn't static. It pulses, wanders, even flips. In the past 100 years alone, the magnetic North Pole has raced from northern Canada towards Siberia at nearly 50 kilometers a year. In the geological record, complete reversals when north and south swap happen every few 100,000 years. During those transitions, the field weakens, the auroras spread toward the equator, and cosmic rays can penetrate deeper into the atmosphere. Now, what connects those surface phenomena to the molten movements below? Everything. The field is literally the fingerprint of the Earth's soul. It tells us how the core breathes, how it stirs, how it evolves. When we detect that the core is slowing, we are reading a heartbeat through magnetic whispers. And that realization should humble us. We depend on an invisible shield that we didn't build, can't fix, and only recently began to understand. The entire architecture of civilization, our power grids, satellites, navigation, rests on a force that originates in molten metal we have never seen. That's the quiet poetry of existence. The recognition that our survival depends not on our inventions, but on the patient physics of a living world. Now, it might be tempting to view all this as distant science, a curiosity for textbooks or documentaries. But remember, our planet's behavior has consequences that ripple through time. The slowing of the core may subtly alter the Earth's rotation, changing the length of a day by a fraction of a millisecond. That's imperceptible to us, But over centuries, those tiny changes accumulate. Our ancestors once used the stars to track time, unaware that the sky itself was shifting ever so slightly, the constellations drifting like slow-moving continents of light. We build monuments, Stonehenge, pyramids, temples aligned to the rising sun, or the solstice moon. Yet the Earth's pulse keeps changing, tugging imperceptibly at those alignments. Every time the planet adjusts its rhythm, human history must recalibrate. Time, we discover, is not absolute. It's woven into the mechanics of our world. And in that dance of seconds and centuries, we glimpse something profound. Even time itself is a living relationship between motion and perception. Here's a thought that rarely enters scientific discussion, but should. The Earth, through us, has become self-aware. The atoms forged in stars coalesced into this planet. Those atoms form continents, oceans, atmospheres, and eventually eyes that could look back and see the stars. Through biology, the universe gave itself the ability to ask why. Now consider this. The slowing of the Earth's core was discovered not by chance, but by instruments built by that same self-aware matter. A planet has learned to measure its own heartbeat. In that act alone, something extraordinary has happened. Matter has become mindful of its motion. That is the deepest meaning of science. It's not merely about collecting data or solving equations, it's the cosmos reflecting on itself through human curiosity. Every time we point a telescope outward or a seismometer inward, the universe is whispering, "Know thyself, go." Physics teaches us that every complex system, whether a hurricane, a galaxy, or a human mind, exists at the edge between order and chaos. Too much order, and the system stagnates. Too much chaos, and it disintegrates. The Earth's core is no exception. It is a fluid system perpetually seeking equilibrium, never finding it. That search for balance defines not just the planet, but us. We are constantly negotiating between order and freedom, stability and change, reason and emotion. Our societies, our politics, our cultures, they all mirror the turbulence beneath our feet. So when I hear that the Earth's core might be slowing, I don't just think of physics. I think of psychology, of civilization itself. Maybe the planet's deep rhythms are a metaphor for our own collective state. A reminder that every stable structure eventually needs to shift, lest it grow brittle. The same forces that stir the molten iron below may, in some symbolic way, stir the human condition. We are, after all, made of the same elements, subject to the same laws, and shaped by the same entropy. And just as the planet adapts by redistributing its energy, we too must learn to redirect ours away from conflict and consumption toward understanding and sustainability. Let's take a step back to appreciate what's truly at stake. The magnetic field born from the Earth's core is not eternal. It's a temporary condition, a balancing act between heat, rotation, and composition. One day, billions of years from now, the core will cool enough that convection slows, the dynamo fades, and the field collapses. When that happens, the solar wind will strip away our atmosphere, much as it did to Mars. The oceans will evaporate. The planet will go silent. That's the ultimate destiny of every world orbiting a star. The slow surrender to thermodynamics. But here's the thing, we are here now. During this fleeting epoch of magnetic protection and breathable air, we exist during the fraction of cosmic history when the Earth's core still burns bright enough to sustain life. So the slowing of the core is not a crisis. It's a clock. It's a reminder that our time here is precious, measured not in human years, but in planetary pulses. The question is, how will we use that time? To know something about the world is to be responsible for that knowledge. The slowing of the Earth's core, the warming of the atmosphere, the acidifying of the oceans, these are not separate phenomena. They are all reminders of interconnection. The planet is a single system, and we are part of it. We live in an era when human activity changes the surface faster than the core ever could. We mine its crust, reroute its rivers, alter its climate, and yet we act surprised when the balance shifts. Maybe, if we truly listen to the rhythms of the Earth, we would act differently. Maybe awareness could become alignment. Science gives us data, but meaning comes from interpretation. What do we choose to learn from what we know? Do we see the slowing of the core as trivia for scientists, or as an invitation to humility? Because if we've learned anything from the cosmos, it's this: ignorance is vast, but understanding is responsibility. Step outside on a clear night and look up. Every star you see is a nuclear furnace, a beacon of thermodynamic imbalance, hot inside, cool outside, forever radiating energy into space. That imbalance is the engine of existence. It's the reason atoms fuse, planets form, and life evolves. The Earth is part of that continuum. Its internal heat is a legacy of cosmic processes. Its slowing rotation, part of an endless trade between motion and energy. And we, tiny creatures of carbon and curiosity, stand at the surface interpreting it all. In that sense, the study of the Earth's core isn't geology, it's cosmology on a local scale. It's the story of how universal laws manifest in the very ground beneath us. It's a chapter in the grand narrative of energy-seeking equilibrium, of the universe discovering itself through the language of physics. We are not spectators of that story. We are its authors and its consequences. And because we are both authors and consequences, we owe the story our best rewrite. Let me take you back to the moment we first learned there was a heart to this world. In 1936, a Danish seismologist named Inge Lehmann read the Earth the way a physician reads an EKG. After a major quake, she noticed certain seismic waves that should have died in the liquid core were reappearing bent and reborn subtle signatures no one had fully explained. From those whispers, she inferred a solid inner core nested inside a liquid outer one. No drill reached it, no camera saw it, a mind did. With pencil, paper, and patience, Lehmann revealed the planet's secret anatomy. A generation later, others filled in the physiology. The outer core, convecting like a slow-boiling metallic ocean. The planet's rotation, shearing those flows into spirals. The result, a self-exciting dynamo, a generator big enough to wrap an entire world in magnetism. Elsasser modeled it. Bullard tested it. Ocean floors told the tale with zebra-striped basalt magnetic tape, recording flips and lulls as seafloor spread from mid-ocean ridges. The compass wasn't a human invention. It was a human admission that Earth had been pointing the way all along. And then came the hint of a new rhythm within that rhythm. By comparing earthquake waveforms decades apart, teams began to suspect the inner core sometimes rotates a touch faster than the mantle, what they called super rotation. Other analyses suggested it can slow, even oscillate over multi-decadal spans. Think of a nested set of flywheels, exchanging angular momentum through viscous, gravitational, and electromagnetic couplings. Nothing dramatic for Tuesday's weather. Everything profound for Tuesday's worldview. If that sounds abstract, remember, we can measure the planet's pulse through changes smaller than a blink in the day's length. Atomic clocks and radio telescopes track Earth's rotation with a precision our ancestors would have called sorcery. We now schedule leap seconds because tides move oceans, winds push mountains of air, and yes, the core ever so slightly lends or borrows motion from the shell we live on. Time, it turns out, is not only a number on a screen, it is a negotiation among oceans, ice, rock, and fire. There's a humility in that. We set our lives by calendars and clocks, but the calendars and clocks report to geology. So what do we do with this knowledge beyond marveling? First, we invest in listening better. Seismometers spread across continents, ocean bottom sensors anchored like stethoscopes on the seafloor, satellites mapping the magnetic field's undulations, laser ranging that times the planet's spin to fractions of a millisecond. The Apollo astronauts left seismometers on the moon. A new generation placed one on Mars. Inner space and outer space are chapters of the same book. The cosmos, learning to read itself. Second, we translate listening into safeguarding. The magnetic field is our invisible infrastructure. When solar storms hurl charged particles our way, That field funnels them toward the poles, painting auroras in the sky and sometimes surges in our grids, building resilient transformers, hardening satellites, forecasting space weather with the seriousness we grant to hurricanes. That's not alarmism. That's literacy in planetary physics. Third, we widen our circle of empathy. The core is not separate from the climate or from us. They are different rooms in the same house. The long cooling of the interior sets the background tempo. Our rapid warming of the surface is a solo we've decided to play over it. Harmony isn't silence, it's agreement on a key. Energy choices that keep the lights on without dimming the aurora's paintbrush or bleaching the reefs or rearranging rainfall belts are ways of performing with the band instead of against it. Fourth, we teach the origin story honestly. Not the fairy tale that Earth is a fixed stage, but the truer story that Earth is a moving actor with motives legible in physics. Tell the next Inga Lehman sitting in a crowded classroom that there are whole worlds left to discover beneath the word beneath. Tell them that insight scales. The patience to hear a faint seismic echo is the same patience to hear a friend, a species, a planet. And let's be candid about uncertainty. Science is not a fortress of answers, it's a lighthouse of methods. Does the inner core always slow on a schedule? Maybe it's a pendulum. Maybe it's a conversation among thermal, compositional, and magnetic forces still arguing about priorities. But uncertainty isn't ignorance. It's the map of where the next discoveries live. We should not fear those blank spaces. We should label them "here be wonders" and sail on. History helps here. When we first raced to the moon, the finish line wasn't a flag and powder. It was a photograph of Earth blue, vulnerable, borderless. The space race handed us the home race. To steward the only known world with liquid water oceans, plate tectonics, and a magnetic shield robust enough to keep an atmosphere for billions of years. The older I get, the more those Apollo images feel less like triumph and more like instruction. They say, you don't own this, you belong to it. Belonging has consequences. It means you do not pour heat and chemistry into the air as if the sky were an infinite sink. You do not harvest, dig, and burn as if the crust were a bottomless wallet. You do not mistake the convenience of a grid for the guarantee of a field. Belonging means you align your behavior with the rhythms that let a planet stay generous. But what if the core slows? What if the field changes? What if reversals come? They ask. We answer with proportion and preparedness. Reversals have come before. Life persisted. The field waxed and waned. Our task is not to panic at the choreography, but to avoid tripping ourselves with needless chords, build redundancy, share data, design for the storm you know will arrive someday, and the blackout that follows, so hospitals stay lit and cities stay calm while the sky throws a light show no one ordered. And yes, keep our eyes on the other horizons. The same physics that turns iron into a shield at Earth's center turns hydrogen into starlight at the sun's core, and might one day turn deuterium into electricity on our shores. When fusion leaves a laboratory and enters the grid, we will be mimicking, at human scale, the kind of core work stars do for galaxies. That won't make our planet immortal. It will make our tenure here more dignified. You might be wondering, where does meaning live in all this metal and magnetism? It lives wherever awareness touches action. When you stand under an aurora and understand it, not as magic, but as magnetism, you feel wonder's temperature rise. When you learn that a woman with a slide rule heard a solid sphere inside a liquid one, you realize intelligence is the universe's favorite way to surprise itself. When you grasp that time itself is braided with tides, winds, and molten iron, you stop treating later like a landfill. Here is a simple practice for a complex world. Pair every fact with a responsibility. The core may be slowing, so we support the science that measures it. The field may waver, so we harden the systems that assume it won't. The climate is changing fast by our hand, so we change our hands. The future is uncertain, so we become certain about our values. And we keep telling the story well, because stories shape budgets, and budgets shape instruments, and instruments shape what we know, and what we know shapes who we become. Tell it as a love story, not a lament. A planet and a species learning to share a heartbeat. In the end, the question why Earth's core might be slowing down and why it matters is an invitation to graduate from residents to citizens of a living world. Citizens listen. Citizens prepare. Citizens build for those they'll never meet. Citizens look up at an aurora and see not just beauty, but infrastructure. And they treat both with care. So the next time the news cycle scrolls past a headline about seismic anomalies, about millisecond days, about a magnetic pole on the move, hear it as music, not menace. Hear in it the bass line of a song that began before continents had names. Then add your instrument. Vote like physics is real. Engineer like entropy is patient. Teach like curiosity is contagious. Live like the future is listening. Because in a very real way, it is. The inner core is listening through the waves we send and the questions we pose. The magnetic field is listening through the circuits we build and the storms we forecast. The future is listening through the choices we make when no one's applauding. And far above the clouds, where satellites trace arcs through a shield drawn by rivers of molten iron, a thin blue atmosphere glows. It is the visible edge of an invisible promise that for a while yet, this planet will keep us if we keep it. The Earth is still turning, the heart is still beating, the tempo may change, but the song is ours to honor. That's why it matters. So here we are, 30 generations into the age of machines, a few hundred into the age of science, a few thousand into the age of writing, sitting on the thin crust of a restless planet. The Earth keeps speaking in the only language it knows: pressure, magnetism, heat. We've learned to translate a few syllables of that language, just enough to hear the change in tempo, the slowing pulse of the core. What will we do with what we hear? If history is any guide, we will first marvel, then argue, then build. That's how knowledge ripens. Someone will design a new satellite to read the magnetic field more precisely. Another will refine seismic tomography until we can map the iron crystals in the core like weather systems. A young researcher not yet born will make sense of the data, and 50 years from now, the textbooks will describe the core oscillation cycle of the 21st century as if it were always obvious. Discovery becomes common sense only after the next generation inherits it. That too is part of the rhythm. But while the planet's inner heart turns once every 1,000 years, ours can shift in a moment. Our core is the sum of empathy, curiosity, and restraint, the three elements that keep civilization molten enough to create and cool enough to endure. When any one of them freezes, we grow brittle. Empathy keeps us from using the world as fuel. Curiosity drives us to understand it before we alter it. Restraint reminds us that just because we can change something doesn't mean we should. Those are the convective currents of the human spirit. Together, they generate the magnetic field of culture, the invisible shield that lets compassion survive in the radiation of power. When that field weakens, when empathy stops circulating, our species becomes vulnerable to storms of its own making. Maybe that is what the slowing of the Earth's core is asking us to notice. Not fear, but reflection, to match the planet's adjustment with one of our own. The continents carry memory the way a phonograph carries sound. Each ridge, each fault, each magnetic stripe on the ocean floor is a record of motion written in basalt and time. The Earth remembers everything, but it does not dwell. It recycles. If we could learn that art of remembering without resentment, of evolving without erasing, we might earn the right to call ourselves a mature species. The crust would still quake, but perhaps our societies would not. Because the next step in human progress is not faster computers or taller towers. It's a deeper emotional geology, a capacity to hold pressure without rupture. When the Apollo missions left the moon, they left behind seismometers. They heard its interior sigh after every meteor strike. Now we send similar instruments to Mars. Soon, perhaps, we will send them to Europa or Enceladus to listen for the tremors of hidden oceans. Each time, the question is the same: is this world alive? And every time we ask that, we are also asking, are we? The search for life beyond Earth is not escapism. It's a mirror. If we find microbial life beneath Martian ice or swimming in Europa's ocean, we'll know that biology is a cosmic habit, not a miracle. If we find nothing, we'll know that consciousness, ours, is rarer than we ever dared to believe. Either outcome should make us gentler with the world that hosts us. We often imagine exploration as an outward act: rockets, rovers, telescopes, but it's also an inward one. The same drive that sends probes into deep space is what sent seismometers into the deep Earth. Both journeys end at understanding, a recognition that the universe is not a collection of separate things, but a single unfolding event. You are part of that event. Every heartbeat in your chest is powered by iron atoms born in the same stellar furnaces that now spin at the center of the Earth. When you breathe, the oxygen that feeds you was first forged in the death of a star. The elements are old, only their arrangements are new. So when you feel small in the face of cosmic scale, remember, scale is irrelevant to significance. The same laws that move galaxies move the blood in your veins. The same energy that stirs the core stirs your thoughts. At some point, the last seismograph of our era will fall silent. New civilizations, perhaps human, perhaps otherwise, will build better ones. They will read the traces we left and understand us not through our wars or our markets, but through our questions. Because questions are the fossils of curiosity, and curiosity is the proof that we once cared. When those future scientists look back, I hope they see that we treated this knowledge not as trivia, but as testimony, that we lived during the age when the planet's heart slowed a little and we decided to listen rather than panic. Listening is the beginning of wisdom. The Earth's core will keep spinning slower or faster for billions of years. Long after the continents, we know, have drifted into new configurations. After our languages are forgotten, after the sun swells and the oceans boil away, the iron heart will still be cooling, still releasing its last heat into space. That seems like the end of a story. But the universe doesn't write endings, it writes transformations. The atoms of this planet will join others to form new worlds. And somewhere, maybe around another star, another species will look inward and wonder about the heart of its own world. They will be doing what we are doing now, continuing the universe's oldest conversation with itself. So, what does it mean that the Earth's core might be slowing down? It means that the song of creation has verses we haven't heard yet. It means that stillness is only another form of movement, one that invites reflection instead of noise. It means that even a planet knows when to breathe. And for us, it's an invitation to match the planet's patience with our own, to replace hurry with depth, to let awareness be the technology that saves us. Because in the end, the Earth's slowing heart is not a warning of decline. It's a lesson in rhythm. Everything that lasts learns how to change its tempo without losing its melody. If we can do the same, if we can learn to live in sync with the slow music of the world beneath us, then perhaps when the next generation listens for the heartbeat of the Earth, they will hear two rhythms instead of one: the pulse of a planet and the steady echo of a species finally at peace with it. When the credits of a civilization finally roll, what remains isn't the skyline or the machines or the archives of data. It's the layer of meaning we've left embedded in the rocks, the magnetic signatures we've impressed into the crust, the trace of a species that once listened. Imagine an archaeologist a million years from now, maybe human, maybe not finding a faint magnetic anomaly in a band of ancient basalt. They won't know our languages or our myths, but they'll see a pattern, a field that once flickered with strange intensity during a brief geological instant. The signature of us, the Anthropocene. The moment the surface of a planet woke up and learned to write in electricity, what will they think of us? That we were reckless? Brilliant? Both? Perhaps they'll see what we sometimes forget, that progress is a kind of experiment the universe is running through us to see whether awareness can coexist with power. Every new discovery carries a kind of gravity, an intellectual mass that bends the path of everything that follows. The slowing of the core may seem abstract, but it bends us too. It reminds us that stability is a loan, not a possession. That the laws of physics will outlast every economy and ideology we invent. The universe has never asked us for perfection, only participation. Only that we keep the experiment going, keep asking, keep measuring, keep caring enough to notice. To know that the Earth's heart is slowing is to be invited into a longer kind of patience, the patience of geology. Millions of years of quiet motion, gentle correction, unhurried transformation. If we could learn even a fraction of that patience, perhaps we could talk to one another with less heat and more light. Whenever I stand under a clear sky far from city glare, I try to hold two images at once. One, the stars blazing with the same fusion that began 14 billion years ago. Two, the molten iron beneath my feet, swirling to keep the air breathable. Above and below, the same story energy moving from high to low, chaos forming order, order dissolving again. Between those two infinites, there is us. A moment of awareness balanced on a planet-sized gyroscope. A species lucky enough to ask questions and unlucky enough to realize how fragile the answers are. That awareness should make us kinder, not smaller. Because if everything we know about physics is true, then the rarest thing in the universe isn't gold, or water, or even life. It's empathy. It's the capacity of matter to care about matter. Someday, we'll build instruments that hear the inner chord directly, that map its eddies and rotations the way we map weather systems. We'll learn how the magnetic field waxes and wanes on thousand-year cycles, how heat migrates through the mantle, how the entire planet conducts the symphony of its own survival. And when that happens, I hope we remember the reason we began to listen at all. Not because it was profitable or fashionable, but because curiosity is the one renewable energy the universe has granted us. As long as we protect that, fund it, teach it, nurture it, the planet's story will keep unfolding through us. Perhaps the real slowing we should fear is not the cores, but our own curiosities. The moment we stop asking, stop wondering, stop allowing science to humble us, that's when a species begins to cool from within. But it's not too late. We can still choose wonder. We can still look at a tremor in the magnetic field and feel awe instead of indifference. We can still teach our children that the ground beneath them is alive, that the very iron in their blood was once part of a star, and that the pulse they feel in their wrists is cousin to the pulse of the planet. That connection is the antidote to apathy. It's the heat that keeps a civilization from going cold. Stand outside some night and place your hand on the ground. Beneath that patch of soil, beneath the stone and the mantle and the outer core, a river of molten iron flows. It has been flowing since before there were continents, before there were oceans, before there was you. Its motion made the field that guides your compass and paints the northern sky in ribbons of light. That light, those auroras, are the visible breath of an invisible heart. When you see them, know that you are watching the earth think, the earth feel, the earth protect its fragile layer of life from the storms of space. And remember, you are part of that protection. The same consciousness that built telescopes and seismometers also builds compassion and stewardship. To be human is to be the Earth's newest experiment in self-awareness, a flicker of thought rising from its crust. So live like the planet is listening, because it is. Every heartbeat you take is another note in its long, slow song. There's a moment just before dawn when the world feels suspended between two tempos. The city sleeps, the birds haven't started their chorus, and the Earth's slow rotation becomes something you can almost feel a steady turn beneath your pulse. If you listen closely, you can imagine the molten core keeping time, a metronome set 4.5 billion years ago. That's when the scale of it all hits you. We exist in the blink of a planet's long day. Our civilizations have risen and fallen in less than a second of geological time. Yet in that second, we've managed to send our curiosity halfway across the solar system and deep into the rock beneath us. We've taken the Earth's silence and turned it into a conversation That might be our greatest invention. Not the wheel, not the engine, but the question. Every instrument we build, from a compass to a collider, is a physical form of the question, why? We point those questions inward and outward, and the universe, generous as always, answers with more questions. It's a loop, knowledge expanding, curiosity regenerating. That's how a species stays warm against the cold of indifference. I think about the old mariners, navigating by the pull of a magnetic field they didn't understand. They trusted a needle to find a direction written into the planet itself. Centuries later, we still depend on that invisible structure. We've just replaced the compass with satellites that trace the same lines through space. But maybe there's another kind of compass, one that measures not magnetism, but meaning. It's built of values, calibrated by wonder, aligned to empathy. When the world's noise pulls us in all directions, that inner compass can remind us where north really is, toward curiosity, toward care, toward the larger pattern that keeps us all in orbit. Because if a planet can generate a field that protects everything on its surface, perhaps a civilization can do the same. Maybe our shared field is empathy, the invisible structure that allows billions of different lives to coexist without tearing one another apart. When the first seismometer trembled with the echo of a distant quake, it was proof that even solid ground has feelings, that rock can transmit a kind of emotion through vibration. In a way, that's what culture does. It lets one generation's tremor be felt by the next. Music, art, science, ethics, they're all forms of resonance. They remind us that care is not static. It's a wave that has to travel. So let the next wave be one of curiosity paired with caution, of progress paired with perspective. Because the same energy that melts iron and stirs a core can also destroy when misdirected. Our tools have reached planetary scale. Our wisdom must too. Everything you've ever loved, the warmth of sunlight, the color of oceans, the air you breathe exists because of a set of delicate coincidences. A stable orbit, a magnetic shield, a tilted axis, a core that still moves. None of this was guaranteed. It all had to happen in just the right way, at just the right distance from the right kind of star. And out of that cosmic math came something irrational. Compassion, humor, music, hope. None of those appear in the equations of physics, yet they are as real as gravity. They are the emergent properties of a universe that against all odds became aware of itself. That awareness is the rarest element in existence. It's what the universe uses to look in the mirror. So when you hear that the Earth's core is slowing, don't think of it as a loss of motion. Think of it as a pause between heartbeats, a chance for reflection. Every living thing needs rest to renew its rhythm. Planets are no different, and neither are we. The next time you feel overwhelmed by the speed of the world, by headlines, deadlines, timelines, remember that the Earth beneath you is moving at its own pace. Patient, deliberate, enduring. Let that be your reminder to slow down, recalibrate, find balance, find gravity. Because the deeper meaning of this discovery is not buried in the core, it's mirrored in us. The planet is simply showing us how to live, with momentum, with adjustment, with care. Picture the planet as seen from space, night and day, sliding across its face like slow breathing. The auroras shimmer at the poles, tracing the invisible dance of magnetism born deep within. Somewhere down there, someone is looking up, seeing those lights for the first time, unaware that what they're really witnessing is the Earth's core made visible, a heartbeat expressed as beauty. That's the perfect metaphor for science itself, the translation of motion into meaning, of data into wonder. Every discovery, from the structure of DNA to the slowing of the Earth's core, is an aurora proof that invisible forces can paint the darkness with color. So let's keep looking and listening and asking. Let's keep turning curiosity into care. Because as long as the Earth turns, even if the rhythm shifts, the song continues. And as long as we listen, the universe will keep teaching us the same simple truth, that everything which moves and everything that changes matters. And so the planet keeps turning, not perfectly, not endlessly, just long enough for us to notice. The core shifts, the field breathes, the crust drifts, and life continues its improbable experiment on the thin film of air and water above it all. For a few short centuries of geological time, consciousness has risen from that film and learned to measure the heartbeat of the world that made it. That alone is astonishing. The universe built a creature curious enough to ask how it works. If the Earth's heart is slowing, it is not dying. It is changing tempo, finding a new rhythm in an old song. And we, if we are wise, will learn to listen to match its patience, to live within its balance, to use our brief moment of awareness, to leave the planet better tuned than we found it. Because the measure of a civilization is not how loudly it can shout into the void, but how carefully it can hear the whisper of a world beneath its feet. The whisper says, "I am still here. I am still turning. Remember me." That is why the Earth's core matters. Because it reminds us that even in silence, even in darkness, motion never ceases and care is never wasted. The Earth turns, we turn with it, and the story continues.